Do you remember me, cowboy? I was your childhood love come to our place tonight. Wild West story. The sun had a soft golden glow as it climbed slowly over the hills, painting the land with warmth. Myra loved these early hours, when the world was quiet except for the calls of birds and the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind. She would stretch her arms, feel the cool air on her face, and breathe in the smell of fresh earth mixed with the faint scent of wildflowers that grew near the river. From the moment she could walk, Mara had been full of energy and curiosity. Her days were spent helping her family on their modest farm, carrying water from the well, gathering firewood, and tending to the chickens and goats. She learned the rhythm of farm life early, how to rise before the sun, how to move quietly so as not to disturb the animals, and how to work with patience and care. Yet, despite the chores, Mara always found time for adventure. She would wander through the fields, skipping stones into the river, climbing trees, or hiding in tall grass to watch butterflies dance in the sunlight. Her imagination transformed the ordinary into extraordinary adventures, and the wide, open land was her playground. Her closest companion in all these adventures was Cole, a boy from the neighboring ranch. Cole was her age, a little taller, with dark hair that curled slightly at the edges and eyes that shone with mischief. From the very first day they met, Mara and Cole became inseparable. They shared everything, their secrets, their laughter, their dreams. They invented games and stories that only they could understand. Sometimes they would build small forts in the fields, using sticks and stones, pretending to be explorers or cowboys defending a hidden treasure. Other times, they would race along the riverbank, their bare feet kicking up dust as they laughed so hard that their sides ached. Myra remembered the summer when Cole had taught her to ride a horse for the first time. She had been nervous at first, gripping the reins tightly, her heart beating fast as the horse stepped forward. Cole had stood beside her, steadying the horse and whispering words of encouragement. "Don't worry," he said, smiling. "I'll be right here." When she finally managed to ride a few steps on her own, she had felt a rush of pride and freedom that she had never experienced before. Cole had cheered and Mara had laughed, the sound echoing across the fields. That moment stayed with her, a simple memory that felt big because of the trust and friendship between them. Their friendship was filled with small, ordinary moments that Mara treasured. They would sit under the shade of a large oak tree, sharing pieces of bread or apples they had brought from their homes, talking about what they wanted to be when they grew up. Cole always dreamed of riding across the West, exploring distant towns and mountains. Myra often imagined a quieter life, perhaps running a small farm of her own, but she loved hearing Cole's stories and feeling the excitement of his imagination. Together, they planned adventures that stretched beyond the borders of their town, imagining themselves as heroes in stories only they could create. Even in the harshness of the Wild West, with its blazing sun, sudden storms, and long, tiring days of work, Myra felt happiness in these simple pleasures. She knew life could be hard. Her parents often worked from dawn to dusk, and she was expected to help. But having Cole by her side made every day lighter. They shared small rebellions against the routines of life, like sneaking into the orchard to taste the ripest apples or wading into the river to cool off during the hottest days. Every shared laugh, every secret, every shared glance strengthened the bond between them. Mara's family, though strict in some ways, encouraged her independence and curiosity. Her father often smiled at her adventurous spirit, though he warned her to be careful. "The world is big and wide," he would say, "but you must always know your place in it. Never wander too far without thinking." Her mother, gentle and kind, taught her practical skills, how to cook over a fire, how to mend clothes, how to care for animals. But she also shared stories of courage and love from the past. Myra absorbed these lessons, carrying them like tools in her mind, but the presence of Cole made her want to step beyond the lessons into real adventures. One of Myra's favorite places was the river, not far from her home. It was a peaceful stretch of water where the sunlight danced on the surface, and fish swam lazily beneath the clear waves. Here, she and Cole would spend entire afternoons playing, fishing, or simply talking. Sometimes they would lie on the grass, staring at the clouds, imagining shapes and stories. Other times they would make small boats from bark and sticks, racing them down the current, cheering and laughing when one boat sank unexpectedly. To Myra, the river was a place of magic, where worries melted away and everything felt possible. As the seasons changed, Mara and Cole's friendship grew stronger. In spring, they would watch the first wildflowers bloom, running through fields dotted with yellow, pink, and purple petals. In summer, they would splash in the river, their laughter ringing across the banks. In autumn, they collected fallen leaves, making piles to jump into, and in winter, they would walk through snow-covered paths, imagining they were explorers in a frozen land. Through every season, the bond between Mara and Cole was constant, a thread of comfort and joy that tied their lives together. Evenings were Mara's favorite time of day. As the sun dipped behind the hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, she and Cole would sit quietly, talking in whispers, sharing dreams too big for the day. Cole often told her he wanted to travel and see the world beyond their small town. Mara listened with wide eyes, imagining distant mountains, endless plains, and towns with people who spoke differently and lived differently. Though she felt a pull toward staying close to her family and home, she loved imagining adventures with him, feeling the thrill of possibility in every word. Mara did not yet understand the feelings that were growing in her heart. Her fondness for Cole was deeper than friendship, but she didn't know what it was. She just knew that being with him made her days brighter and her laughter lighter. She felt safe around him, understood by him, and inspired to dream bigger. And Cole seemed to feel the same, always careful to notice her happiness, always wanting to share his adventures with her. One late summer evening, as the sun set and the sky turned purple, Mara and Cole sat on a large rock by the river, their feet dangling in the cool water. They didn't speak much, words were not needed. The gentle sound of the river and the soft rustling of leaves created a peaceful silence. Mara glanced at Cole, and he smiled at her, a small, knowing smile that made her heart flutter. They both knew that these moments, small as they were precious. They were not just playing children. They were two souls forming a connection that would last long after childhood. And so, life went on in their small town, filled with chores, lessons, and responsibilities. Yet Mara and Cole always found time for each other, creating a world of laughter, dreams, and shared adventures. Every day, every game, every secret strengthened the bond that would one day be more than just friendship. For now, though, it was enough to laugh, explore, and dream together. The Wild West was vast and often harsh, but for Mara and Cole, it was also a place of wonder, where childhood love and friendship could grow freely under the endless sky. The summer had ended, and the first hints of autumn arrived, turning the fields a soft golden color. Mara noticed the crispness in the air, the way the wind carried the smell of dry leaves and the distant mountains. The change of season brought a quiet feeling over the town, but for Mara, it also brought a heavy sadness she could not shake. Cole's family had made a sudden decision. They would leave the town to work on a ranch many miles away. No one had expected it, and the news felt like a sudden storm that stole the sunlight from her days. Mara tried to understand, but the thought of not seeing Cole every day, not laughing with him or sharing secrets, made her chest ache. The days before their departure were filled with hurried goodbyes and a mixture of excitement and sorrow. Mara's parents were polite and kind to Cole's family, but Mara herself could hardly speak. She watched him ride his horse through the dusty streets of the town, imagining that every step he took was a step further away from her. Cole tried to keep his usual cheerful smile, but Mara noticed a shadow of worry in his eyes. He promised her they would write letters, that distance would not change their friendship. "I will never forget you," he said softly, holding her hand for a moment longer than usual. Mara nodded, trying to smile, but her eyes betrayed her fear. Once Cole left, the town felt emptier. The fields that had seemed alive with their laughter now felt quiet and still. Mara would often sit by the river, waiting for the sound of his voice, imagining that he might appear over the hill, waving to her. She clutched the letters he sent, reading and rereading them, savoring every word. Each letter spoke of his journey, the ranch he worked on, the horses he trained, and the people he met. Cole described the wide plains and the distant mountains, painting pictures in Mara's mind of places she had never seen. She cherished the letters, but they also reminded her of how far away he had gone. Months passed, and life continued on the farm. Mara worked with her parents, helping with the chores, learning new skills, and keeping the house in order. Yet even with her busy days, her mind often wandered to Cole. She thought about the adventures they had shared, the river where they had spent countless hours, and the small oak tree where they had told secrets. She missed his laughter, the way he could make her feel brave and adventurous, and even the silly games they had played. Nights were the hardest. Mara would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining what Cole was doing at that exact moment. Was he thinking of her too? Did he miss the small town as much as she missed him? Sometimes, Mara wondered if time and distance would change everything. People in the town whispered that children often outgrew their childhood friendships, but Mara could not believe it. Cole had been more than a friend. He had been a part of her life, a part of her happiness. The thought of losing that connection made her restless. She often wrote letters to him herself, describing her days, the farm work, the changing seasons, and even the small adventures she imagined in her mind. Every letter was a piece of herself, a reminder that she had not forgotten the boy who had shared her childhood. As seasons changed from autumn to winter, the town was covered in a soft layer of snow. Myra loved watching the white blanket cover the fields and trees. It made the world look peaceful and magical, but it also reminded her of Cole's absence. She would wrap herself in warm blankets by the fireplace, reading his letters again and again. In the firelight, she would remember the summer afternoons by the river, the sound of their laughter, and the simple joys of running through the fields together. Each memory was bittersweet, bringing both warmth and longing. Despite the sadness, Mara grew in other ways. She learned new skills, became more confident in her work on the farm, and found small joys in daily life. She learned to ride horses with skill, to care for animals, and to manage responsibilities that her parents relied on her for. Yet, no matter how busy or independent she became, a part of her heart remained tied to Cole. She realized that true friendship and love could be patient, enduring, and quiet, even when separated by miles. She held on to the hope that someday their paths would cross again. One spring, nearly a year after Cole had left, Mara received news that he would be visiting a town not far from theirs for a short time. The news brought a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She could hardly contain her emotions. Would he be the same? Would the friendship still feel as natural? Mara spent days preparing herself, not with fancy clothes, but with courage and the memories of who they were together. She wanted to see him not as a child, but as someone who had grown into his own life, yet remained the boy she had known and trusted. When the day finally came, Mara waited by the river, their old meeting place. She saw a figure approaching from the distance. Her heart skipped a beat. Cole was taller now, his face showing signs of the years and experiences he had gained, but his eyes, those familiar, kind eyes, were the same. They recognized each other immediately, the years melting away in an instant. Cole smiled, that same mischievous smile that Mara remembered, and ran the last few steps to meet her. They embraced, careful at first, then with the comfort of familiarity, holding on to the connection that had never truly faded. They spent that day walking along the river, catching up on the months and years apart. Cole told stories of the new ranch, the animals he had cared for, and the adventures he had imagined along the way. Mara listened, laughing at his jokes and marveling at the places he had seen. She shared her own experiences, the small triumphs and challenges of life on the farm, and the moments she had spent thinking of him. The conversation flowed easily, as though no time had passed, yet both of them felt the subtle changes brought by distance and growing up. By evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, they sat quietly on the riverbank. Mara felt a strange mix of emotions, joy, relief, and a touch of sadness at the thought that their time together was limited. Cole took her hand gently, reminding her of the countless times they had held hands as children, and whispered, "No matter where life takes us, I will never forget you." Mara nodded, feeling the warmth of his words, knowing that their bond had survived the separation. As the stars appeared in the sky, Mara realized that separation had not weakened their friendship. It had made it stronger. Distance had taught them patience, longing, and the value of true connection. The memory of their shared childhood, their adventures, and the trust they had in each other became even more precious. Mara understood that sometimes, life's paths take people apart, but the heart remembers and true bonds endure. That night, as Mara walked back home through the quiet streets of the town, she felt a sense of hope she had not known for months. She knew that the story of her friendship with Cole was far from over. They had faced the challenge of distance, grown individually, and yet remained connected. The river, the fields, and the oak tree had all witnessed their bond, and they would witness it again when the time was right. Mara went to bed that night feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the friendship that had shaped her childhood, and for the hope that one day their lives would intersect again in ways that neither time nor distance could change. Spring had fully arrived, bringing with it warmth and the sweet smell of blooming flowers. Mara loved walking through the fields and along the river, watching the world awaken after months of cold. She had grown stronger and more confident since Cole had left, but her heart still held a quiet emptiness. She thought of him often, wondering where he was and what he was doing. Every letter he had sent, though now months old, was treasured and read again and again. They had kept in touch, but the long distances made it impossible to feel close. Still, Mara hoped that someday they would see each other again, and she carried that hope in her heart like a precious flame. One quiet afternoon, while Mara was tending to the chickens in the yard, a rider appeared over the hill. At first, she thought it might be a traveler passing through, but as he came closer, her eyes widened. The handwriting on the envelope he carried was unmistakable, Cole S. She hurried over, taking the letter with trembling hands. Her heart raced as she carefully opened it, her fingers brushing the paper as if it were fragile glass. She unfolded it and began to read. The words were simple, yet they made her pulse quicken. "Do you remember me, Mara? I was your childhood friend. I hope to see you tonight at our old place by the river." Mara's mind spun with emotions. Excitement, nervousness, curiosity, and fear all mingled together. Could it really be true? Was he really coming back to see her? The thought of seeing Cole again after so many months was overwhelming. She remembered the sound of his laughter, the way he had looked at her with kindness and trust, and the adventures they had shared. The memories felt vivid, almost like they had happened yesterday. She could hardly imagine how much he might have changed, and yet she knew that a part of him, the part that had been her closest friend, would still be the same. For hours, Mara could do nothing but pace the small yard, holding the letter to her chest. Her mind raced with questions. Would he recognize her immediately? Would the bond they had as children still feel the same now that they were older? What would they talk about after all the time apart? She felt a mix of excitement and anxiety, realizing how deeply she had missed him. Every corner of the farm, every tree and path, seemed to echo with memories of their childhood adventures. It was as if the land itself was waiting for their reunion, holding onto the laughter and secrets of the past. As the afternoon turned to evening, Mara prepared herself. She didn't need fancy clothes or adornments. She needed courage and the willingness to meet Cole as both a friend and someone who had always held a special place in her heart. She gathered a small satchel with food and water, in case they spent the evening by the river as they used to, and slipped on her boots, feeling the cool leather hug her feet. Her heart thumped in anticipation as she walked toward the familiar path that led to their old meeting place. Every step was filled with memories, skipping stones, chasing butterflies, laughing in the sun. The path felt both familiar and new, just as she felt about seeing Cole again. When Myra reached the riverbank, the sight of the water brought back a flood of memories. She remembered lying on the grass, watching clouds drift by, racing bark boats down the current, and the countless afternoons filled with laughter. But tonight, the river felt different. It was a place of anticipation, of possibility, of hope. She waited, her eyes scanning the horizon, every sound amplified in the quiet evening. The soft rustling of leaves, the gentle flow of water, and the distant call of a bird created a peaceful tension, as if the world itself knew something important was about to happen. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. Mara's heart ached with longing and excitement, and she began to wonder if he would really come. Just as she began to doubt, a figure appeared over the hill, moving steadily toward the river. Her breath caught in her throat. It was him, Cole. He looked older, taller, with shoulders broader from work and life, but his eyes, those same familiar eyes, sparkled with the same warmth and kindness she had remembered. He spotted her immediately and broke into a smile, the kind that made Myra's heart leap. He quickened his pace, and she ran the last few steps toward him. When they met, there was a brief, careful silence. They looked at each other, drinking in the changes that time had brought, while also recognizing the bond that had never faded. Then slowly, smiles broke across their faces, and they laughed softly, a sound that felt like home. Myra felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming joy of seeing someone who had been such an important part of her life. Cole reached out and took her hand, the gesture gentle and familiar, reminding her of the countless moments they had shared as children. They sat together by the river, the water shimmering in the last light of the day. Cole spoke first, sharing stories of the distant ranch, the work he had done, and the people he had met. His voice carried excitement, but also a quiet longing for the town he had left behind. Mara listened intently, laughing at the moments that were funny, and feeling a warmth in her chest at the moments that showed his thoughtfulness and courage. Then Mara shared her own experiences, the challenges and triumphs on the farm, the lessons she had learned, and the ways she had thought of him often. The conversation flowed easily, as if no time had passed at all, and yet both felt the subtle weight of years and distance. As night fell, the stars began to appear, twinkling above them in the vast sky. The air was cool, carrying the scent of wildflowers and the river's gentle flow. Mara felt a calm she hadn't realized she had missed so deeply. Cole turned to her, eyes reflecting the starlight, and said softly, "I never stopped thinking about you, Mara. Even with the miles between us, you were always in my mind." Mara's heart fluttered. She realized that the feelings she had carried in her heart were not just childhood affection. They were something deeper, something that had endured despite time and distance. They walked along the river, sharing memories of their childhood adventures. The fields, the oak tree, the paths they had run along, everything seemed to come alive with their stories. They laughed at the mischief they had gotten into, remembered the moments of courage and trust, and quietly acknowledged the bond that had formed in their early years. Every memory seemed to connect them more tightly, as if the years apart had only strengthened what had always been there. As they reached a small clearing by the river, Cole stopped and looked at Mara seriously. "I wrote you this letter because I wanted to see you, to make sure our friendship, our connection, still exists, and I think it does, more than ever." Mara felt her chest tighten with emotion. She nodded, realizing that the bond they had formed as children was no longer just a memory. It was alive, waiting to grow into something more. She realized that she had not only missed her friend, but she had missed the part of herself that had been happiest with him by her side. They spent the rest of the evening sitting by the river, talking softly, enjoying the gentle sounds of the night. The stars reflected in the water, and the moon cast a silver glow over the landscape. Mara and Cole felt a sense of peace and belonging that only came from being with someone who truly understood you. For Mara, it was a night of rediscovery, rediscovering a friend, a bond, and a feeling she thought she might have lost forever. By the time Mara returned home, the moon was high and the town was quiet. She felt a sense of hope and anticipation she had not felt for months. Cole's letter had brought more than just a meeting. It had brought a reminder that some connections, no matter how far apart, no matter how much time passes, cannot be broken. The evening had shown her that childhood memories, friendships, and even love could survive distance and grow stronger when nurtured with care and honesty. The night was calm and quiet, the kind of night that made the stars shine brighter and the river sparkle under their light. Mara walked slowly along the familiar path toward the river, her heart still pounding from the earlier reunion with Cole. Even though they had talked and laughed when he arrived, something about being near him again brought a flutter of nervous excitement she couldn't ignore. Every step she took felt both familiar and new. The world around her, the tall grass swaying in the breeze, the gentle sound of the river, the distant hills, seemed to reflect the mixture of memories and possibilities that danced in her mind. Cole had waited for her at their usual spot by the river, just as he had promised. He was sitting on the large, flat rock where they had shared so many childhood secrets, his horse tethered nearby. When he saw Mara approaching, he stood and smiled, the same warm, easy smile that had always made her heart feel lighter. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They simply looked at each other, feeling the years melt away and the bond of childhood reconnect in the quiet night. Then slowly Mara walked closer, and they sat together on the rock, side by side, letting the gentle sounds of the river fill the silence between them. "I can't believe we're here again," Mara said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. She looked down at the water, watching the moonlight dance across its surface. "It feels like no time has passed, and yet so much has changed." Cole nodded, his gaze fixed on her. "I've thought about this moment for months," he admitted. "I kept wondering if it would feel the same, if you'd even want to see me again. But now that you're here, It's better than I imagined. Mara felt warmth spread through her chest. It wasn't just the joy of seeing him. It was the realization that the bond they had shared as children had grown stronger, not weaker, despite the distance and time. They began to walk slowly along the riverbank, their footsteps soft on the grass. They shared stories of their lives since they had last seen each other. Mara told Cole about her days on the farm, how she had learned to care for the animals, manage chores, and take responsibility for many small tasks her parents relied on her for. She spoke of the quiet evenings spent reading by the fireplace, thinking of him, and imagining the adventures they had once shared. Cole listened intently, laughing at the funny moments and showing genuine admiration for the strength and patience she had developed. Cole, in turn, told Mara about his life away from the town. He spoke of the vast plains, the work on the new ranch, and the challenges of learning to manage large herds of cattle. He told her about the people he had met, the new friendships he had formed, and the lessons he had learned about responsibility and courage. His stories were full of adventure and experience, but beneath them all was a constant thread of longing, a desire to reconnect with the girl who had once been his closest friend. Myra noticed the way his eyes would sometimes soften when he looked at her, the small, careful gestures that revealed how much he still cared. As they walked, they returned to some of their favorite childhood spots along the river. They stopped at the large oak tree where they had carved their initials so many years ago. Cole traced the letters with his finger, smiling as he remembered the day they had done it together. "We were so young," he said, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. "But even then, I knew you were someone special." Mara felt her heart skip a beat. She wanted to respond, to tell him that she had always felt the same way, but the words seemed to catch in her throat. Instead, she smiled, letting the memory and the moment speak for her. They found a quiet spot where the grass was soft and the river flowed gently past. Here, they sat and watched the water, sharing comfortable silence and soft conversation. Mara realized that being with Cole felt natural, as if no years had passed, yet she also noticed the subtle changes that made him seem older, wiser, and more confident. She found herself drawn to him not just as the boy she had known, but as a man who had grown and faced life's challenges with courage. The connection between them felt stronger than ever, a mixture of friendship, trust, and something more, something deeper that neither of them had fully named yet. The night grew darker, but neither of them seemed to notice. They talked about dreams and hopes for the future, imagining what their lives might hold. Mara shared her ideas of running her own farm one day, of caring for animals and living close to the land she loved. Cole spoke of traveling further, seeing the world beyond the town, but always returning to the places and people he cared about. They laughed at the differences in their ambitions, but both felt a quiet understanding. Whatever paths they took, they would always share a connection that distance and time could not break. At one point, Cole reached out and gently took Mara's hand. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. Myra felt a rush of warmth and emotion, realizing that the feelings she had carried for so long were no longer just childhood fondness. They were something stronger, something that had grown quietly over time. She looked at Cole, and in his eyes she saw the same recognition, the same unspoken understanding that they had both felt all along. Their bond was no longer just memories. It was alive, present, and powerful. They stayed by the river late into the night, talking, laughing, and sometimes sitting in comfortable silence. The stars above seemed to shine just for them, and the soft glow of the moon reflected in the water created a magical atmosphere. Mara realized that she had never felt such peace and happiness. Being with Cole was like coming home, like finding a part of herself she had missed without even realizing it. And Cole, too, seemed to feel the same. The way he looked at her, the careful words he chose, and the gentle gestures all spoke of a bond that had endured and deepened with time. Eventually, they decided to ride their horses along the river's edge, just as they had done as children. The cool night air brushed their faces, and the rhythm of the horses' hooves on the soft ground reminded them of the adventures they had shared. Mara felt a thrill of joy, the same kind she had felt as a child, but now tempered with the knowledge and emotions of grown-up life. Cole laughed beside her, and the sound filled the night, carrying a mixture of nostalgia and excitement. Together, they were rediscovering not only their friendship, but also the possibility of something more. As the night drew to a close, they returned to the oak tree, the place that had witnessed so many of their shared memories. Cole looked at Mara seriously and said, "I've waited a long time to see you again. And now that I have, I realize that the connection we had as children is still here, stronger than I imagined." Mara felt tears well up in her eyes, not from sadness, but from the depth of emotion and understanding she felt. She knew at that moment that the bond between them was real, enduring, and precious. When it was finally time to part, they did so reluctantly. Mara walked back toward her home, feeling a mixture of contentment and anticipation. The night had been more than just a reunion. It had been a reminder of the power of friendship, love, and connection. She realized that Cole had always been a part of her heart, and now, after all the time apart, they had found each other again. For the first time in months, Myra felt a sense of certainty. Some bonds are meant to last, and some connections, once rediscovered, can grow into something truly remarkable. The first light of dawn stretched across the fields, casting a soft golden glow over the town and the river where Mara and Cole had spent the night. Mara woke early, her heart still full from the previous evening. She felt a quiet joy that she hadn't experienced in months, the kind of happiness that comes from knowing that someone truly understands you, someone who has been a part of your life from the very beginning. The memories of their childhood, the months of waiting and longing, and the reunion by the river all blended into a warmth that filled her chest. Cole had stayed nearby, helping with small chores and preparing breakfast over a fire by the river. When Mara approached, he greeted her with that familiar warm smile, the one that had made her heart flutter since they were children. "Good morning," he said, handing her a cup of warm tea. "I thought we could start the day slowly, like old times." Mara smiled, feeling a sense of comfort and belonging. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes about their bond, the way they could be together, simply and easily without pretense or worry. They spent the morning riding along the riverbank, the horses' hooves soft against the earth. Myra felt the breeze on her face, the rhythm of the ride soothing her mind. Cole rode beside her, sharing stories of the distant towns he had visited and the adventures he had imagined while away. Mara listened eagerly, laughing at his jokes and marveling at his experiences, while also sharing her own stories of farm life, the challenges she had faced, and the small victories she had achieved. The conversation flowed naturally, full of understanding and warmth. By midday, they had reached a quiet hill overlooking the river. The view was breathtaking, fields stretching to the horizon, dotted with wildflowers, the river sparkling like silver under the sun. Myra sat on a large rock, taking it all in, while Cole stood nearby looking at the same view. "It's beautiful here," Myra said softly. "It feels like home." Cole nodded, his eyes turning toward her. "It always will," he said. "No matter where we go, this place and you are always a part of me." Myra's heart swelled with emotion. She realized that their connection was not just tied to the past, it was alive in the present, and it would continue into the future. As the afternoon unfolded, they returned to the river, sitting quietly and watching the water flow. Myra thought about all the years they had spent apart, the letters, and the longing that had filled her days. Now, sitting beside Cole, she felt a sense of completion, as if a chapter of her life that had been waiting to be written was finally being fulfilled. Cole reached out, taking her hand gently, and Mara felt a warmth that spread through her entire being. Their fingers intertwined naturally, a silent promise of trust, care, and companionship. Cole spoke softly, breaking the comfortable silence. "I never stopped thinking about us, Mara. Even when I was far away, you were always in my mind. I realized that what we had as children, it wasn't just friendship. It's something deeper, something I want to keep forever." Mara's eyes glistened with tears, not of sadness, but of pure happiness. She realized that she had always felt the same way, though she hadn't understood it fully until this moment. "I feel the same," she whispered. "I always have." The sun began to lower, casting a golden light across the river and the fields. Mara and Cole spent the evening talking about their dreams for the future. Mara imagined running her own farm, caring for animals, and living a life close to the land she loved. Cole spoke of traveling to see the world beyond their town, but he also knew that no matter where he went, he wanted to return to the people and places that mattered most. Together, they began to imagine a life that included both adventure and stability, dreams that were separate yet connected, and a future that was shared. As darkness fell and the stars appeared, they built a small fire near the river. The warmth of the flames reflected the warmth they felt in their hearts. They shared quiet moments, speaking softly, laughing at old memories and planning the days ahead. Mara felt a deep sense of peace. She realized that life had brought them back together not by chance, but through patience, longing, and the strength of their bond. The river, the fields, and the oak tree had all witnessed their journey, and now they witnessed a new beginning. Later, Mara and Cole walked to the oak tree one last time that evening. The tree had stood through the years, watching over them as they grew, changed, and matured. Cole traced the initials they had carved as children, now weathered but still visible. "We've come a long way," he said softly. Mara nodded, feeling the weight of time and the strength of their journey. "And yet some things never change," she replied, her voice full of meaning. Cole smiled, understanding exactly what she meant. Their friendship, their trust, and their love had endured everything. They spent the night under the stars, talking about simple joys, sharing hopes, and dreaming together. Myra felt that she had found a home in Cole, not just a place but a person who understood her, accepted her, and loved her for who she was. Cole felt the same. He realized that the girl who had shared his childhood adventures was now the woman he wanted by his side for the rest of his life. The Wild West around them felt vast and challenging, but together, they knew they could face anything. Their connection, rooted in memories and strengthened by years apart, had grown into something beautiful and lasting. By the time they returned home the next morning, Mara and Cole had made silent promises to each other, promises of care, trust, and a shared future. They had rediscovered their friendship and realized that the love that had begun in childhood was now strong enough to guide their adult lives. Mara knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but with Cole by her side, she felt ready to face them all. Cole, too, understood that their bond was rare and precious, a connection that would guide them through any storm. From that day forward, Mara and Cole spent their days together, balancing work, adventure, and the simple joys of life. They rode horses, tended to animals, explored the fields, and shared quiet moments by the river. Every day was a reminder of how far they had come, from childhood friends separated by distance to reunited companions with a deep, enduring bond. Their lives were intertwined, filled with love, trust, and the shared dreams that had grown from their earliest adventures. The Wild West remained a place of beauty and challenge, with long days, changing seasons, and unpredictable weather. But for Myra and Cole, it was also a place of opportunity, where love could be rediscovered, nurtured, and grown. They had learned that time and distance could not weaken true bonds, and that patience, hope, and understanding could bring people back together when the heart remained faithful. Together, they faced each day with courage, laughter, and the knowledge that some connections are meant to last forever. And so Myra and Cole's story continued, rooted in childhood memories, strengthened by years apart, and blossoming into a life filled with trust, joy, and love. The river continued to flow, the oak tree stood tall, and the fields stretched endlessly, just as they had always done. But now the land held new meaning, a place where friendship had grown into love, where dreams had been shared and realized, and where two hearts had finally found their way back to each other.